did you send it with that stuff?
I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You clearly
It's on
haven't watched it.
Yeah.
So then, let's start. What do you know? What do you want to know?
Okay. Really, I mean, what I just really want to know is like, what's the benefits of the cleanse? So for a person living in this world that we're in, what are the benefits to these cleanses?
Yeah, beautiful question. So the benefit of the cleanse is essentially a reset and restore. Given our lifestyles, given any lifestyle, we accumulate things we don't need in our bodies, whether it's in the form of undigested food or even in the form of undigested experiences. Sometimes when we're feeling overwhelmed, we just don't want to deal with stuff. And so in Ayurveda, those are both considered toxins, right? Because they're affecting our mind-body system. And so the purpose of the cleanse is to prepare the body in a way that it is comfortable and safely capable of removing these toxins from the body.
Okay, so it's not just necessarily a physical cleanse, but it's almost a mental cleanse as well?
Absolutely. In addition to that, it's a reset for the digestive system. Because what happens is, so toxins, what it really is a toxin is essentially a leftover particle from a less than optimal digestion process, right? So when you digest food, what happens is the food is taken, and on one side we take, okay, these are the nutrients, we're going to absorb those, and this is the waste, right? This is what we don't need, we're going to excrete that. And so in digestion, in any form, what happens is something in that process goes wrong. It could be that what was supposed to be categorized as waste actually got categorized as nutrient, and then our body absorbs that. Sometimes it can go the other way. Sometimes what our body would actually like to absorb, we end up excreting as waste. And then sometimes something just gets left in the middle. Sometimes just in the process of identifying and categorizing, there's just something that gets left over, and then that's sitting in the body as well. And so basically what happens is, so the word for that in Ayurveda is ama. Ama literally means not me. That's Sanskrit. And so these particles of not me, this ama, it sticks, and it starts to accumulate, and it starts to coagulate in our systems. And eventually it just grows and it clogs, and that's really the cause of so many diseases. It's just that toxic, sticky, morbid substance getting in the way of what our body wants to do naturally.
Okay.
And so that ama ends up, because it gets absorbed into the bloodstream and goes to the tissues, it ends up accumulating in the tissues. So what we do in the Ayurvedic cleanse, when I say prepare the body to safely remove the toxins, what we're actually doing is we're releasing the toxins from the tissues, from our muscle tissue, from our fat tissue, from our bone tissue, and we're bringing it back into the digestive system. And then once it's back in the digestive system, then we release it. Then we, cleanse it. Then we purge it completely.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay, so this is as much of getting rid of, but also prevention, probably further prevention as well, from bacteria, diseases, toxins.
Totally. Yeah, because after we're done cleansing, we rejuvenate, which is the most important part. Because once we make that extra space in our tissues, we need to fill that space with something. And so if you don't fill it with healthy, nourishing food or medicine, then your problem can actually come back worse. Because there's more space for that physiological dysfunction to take place. And so when we restore it with proper, wholesome ingredients, then our systems essentially come back to optimal health, which is exactly what you're describing. That's preventative medicine. It's just keeping ourselves healthy now, today.
Okay, so now what is like the biggest thing that I should notice once going through a cleanse like this?
That's a great question. So honestly, it's gonna depend. Different people are gonna notice different things. when I first did something like this, I experienced an appetite that I had never experienced before. In Ayurveda, we talk about the digestive fire. You know, they use fire as the metaphor for the experience of your digestion and your metabolism. And so after I did a cleanse like this, I had never felt such a robust digestive capacity. It's not that it was uncomfortable. It's not that it was hot or bothersome in any way. But when I was hungry, it was like, let's go, you know, like I'm hungry. It felt good. Like, you know, my body was like, I'm ready to receive nutrients. And when you give me those nutrients, I'm going to know exactly what to do with them, you know? So that was my experience. And I've talked to other people who have experienced very different things. You know, some people experience a lot in that mental, emotional realm. A lot of times, you know, getting into those like mental toxins, you know, that's just stuff that we're holding on to. We have these experiences and we hold on to them. And they can be difficult to let go of. And so after a cleanse like this, a lot of times people will find, not only will they find peace with the events that have occurred, but in so finding that peace, kind of as a result, they'll experience motivation, inspiration. You know, a lot of times people have trouble getting going. You know, it's like, I know what to do, but I just can't get myself to do it. A lot of people will experience that drive to do things.
Okay. Now I know, you know, this is such a busy world that we live in. It's easy just to be going from as soon as you wake up to the time you go to bed, it's just go, 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 go. You know, and I've realized, and I know that there's a lot of people like this. They drink a lot of caffeine, coffee, energy drinks, you know, and I find myself in that state. And that's one of the biggest reasons I want to do this cleanse, because I'm kind of trickling myself down off of drinking so much coffee in a day. What do you think is the beneficiaries of doing this cleanse on this path that I'm going on of minimizing the amount of caffeine intake I have, but still wanting that energy level to where I can still accomplish things on a high level?
Yeah, wow. You ask amazing questions. I love these questions. This is fun.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So, there are two sources of energy. There is the energy that is already dormant in your body. And so that's the energy that comes from food. That's the energy that comes from proper nourishment, proper food, proper water, even proper relationships, right? Proper experiences, nourishing experiences, things that make you feel good inside. That's what builds up your tissues. That's what your digestive system is always doing. It's taking the food and it's building it up into tissues. And your tissues are literally your energy reservoirs. You know, you've probably heard that fat tissue is your most effective energy reservoir. So those molecules are sitting there. They're literally energy that's waiting to be released. And so what's happening when you're drinking coffee, when you're taking energy drinks, even when you're drinking alcohol or doing drugs, is that those energy capsules that are already present in your body are being chemically activated. Right? So that's what a prescription drug is doing. It's creating a chemical reaction in your body, which is having some sort of effect. But coming back to what we're talking about, which is releasing energy.
Okay.
Right? So you drink this coffee, it's a chemical reaction. The molecule gets opened, you get more energy, you feel awake, you feel alive. The thing is, as you well know, when you're activating energy in that sort of way, chemically, you're taking out a loan, which you have to pay interest on, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And so the next day, you have the option to pay your loan, which is be groggy, or you can drink more coffee, and then you take out another loan. And so that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And so with the cleanse, not only will you give yourself the opportunity to pay your debts, but we'll also learn and practice the most practical and effective ways to maintain our health and nourishment. You know, so much of Ayurveda is being practical. You know, I'm not going to tell you to go start a garden and grow your food. Because, yeah, that would be ideal, but we don't have time for that, right? So we're going to learn what are the most practical, effective things that I can do to keep myself healthy and nourished so that my energy source is that natural, proper energy source, which comes from my food, which comes from my sleep.
Awesome. So somebody that's just living their lives, that you run into the street, just a random person, what would be your recommendation on why just any human being out here should do this aggravated cleanse?
Yeah, great question.
Mm-hmm.
The truth is not every human being should do this cleanse.
Okay.
There are contraindications to this cleanse. So this cleanse is taxing on the body. So people with serious disease conditions, elderly, even like children, if you're in a weakened state, anyone with like chronic fatigue syndrome or something like that, like we would never recommend that they do a cleanse like this.
Okay. So who would be the target ideal person who you would recommend it to?
Yeah. So certainly anybody who's healthy, any healthy adult, if you're feeling relatively good, this is great for you. Especially, so like in Indian culture, well, certainly if you're practicing Ayurveda, it's common to do a cleanse like this once a year, once every other year, just to keep the system in check, just like getting an oil change. Okay. And so as Americans, most of us have never experienced this. So if you're an adult, age, I'd say 18 or 20 to 60, and you think you're in relatively good health, this is an amazing choice for you. In addition to that, most disease conditions, like minor disease conditions, like this would still be okay. Like if you're pre-diabetic or if you have digestive issues, so this is amazing for most people with digestive issues. Okay. It always depends. It depends on the severity of certain things. And of course, we never do a cleanse without having a consultation. So we're always going to check in with the person and make sure that this is an appropriate step for them, something that they can do. But yeah, really, this is for people who are in relatively good health, but maybe they're feeling tired. Maybe they just feel like their energy levels aren't as high as they'd like them to be. Maybe they'd like to improve their sleep quality. Maybe mentally they're just feeling lethargic, feeling kind of stuck. This is for anybody like that. Maybe you want to lose some weight.
Okay. So now you just mentioned that this is something that, an American might do once a year, once every year or so forth. What is your recommendation from your professional experience on how often we would truly benefit from doing this? I mean, is this something like realistically, if you had the time, energy, the intention on doing this as recommended, is this something you would do like every other month? You stay cleansed every month of the year, once a year? What do you recommend?
Yeah, great question. Generally speaking, once a year would be enough.
Okay. Now, is that a certain time of year you recommend it? Like, for instance, we just went through winter in Indiana, gray skies. I noticed there were times where I was lacking energy, lacking just, like I felt stuck. They call it SAD, that seasonal affective disorder from all the gray skies here in Indiana. Like, is that a time where if a strategic person was wanting to like optimize and get the most benefits out of it, that would be a good time to do it? Or would you do it per se like before that season started so you could just plow through those hard seasons? Maybe in the summer when you've already got this beautiful skies and you're like, let's elevate where we're at. So what would you recommend?
Beautiful. Beautiful. So you laid out some wisdom in that question. Absolutely. So during the winter, the gray skies are coming in. A lot of people, that's a natural time to feel a little more down, a little heavier, a little cloudier. And there's a reason for that. So in winter, our bodies go into an accumulation phase. It's getting colder. We want to gain weight to keep ourselves warm. So we go into an accumulation. Not only do we put on excess weight, our appetite actually goes up so that we can turn that food into excess weight.
Hibernation,
that's
yeah.
right. And so
Yeah.
that's what we do naturally. And so, of course, today, not only is our bodies doing that naturally, but also it's Christmas time. So everybody's making pies.
Thanksgiving,
Yeah, it's Thanksgiving. We're drinking, we're celebrating, we're doing all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah.
And then come February, come March, yeah, we've been feeling kind of heavy for a while. And like you said, spring is the answer. Spring is the perfect time to do this. And the reason for that is because we're attuning to what nature is doing. What nature is doing is the sun is coming out, the days are getting longer, and the snow is melting. And so the heaviness, the accumulation, we're starting to release it. We're starting to let it go. And then that paves the way for new life. That's spring. And so we're following that exact timing with our internal nature and our bodies.
Okay. Now, I've realized every single winter, and that's why I started talking to you about doing a cleanse. I've realized every winter I do get all that SAD, that seasonal affective disorder, and those, lack of energy and so forth. So for a person like myself and others, you wouldn't recommend doing it before, because like that's a big goal for me, and realizing it, even how it affected me this winter, is being preparatory for this coming winter. So you don't think that per se doing that in the middle of that season can help you accelerate or excel or get unstuck, like you mentioned, during that time?
It's a good question. So it's not that you couldn't do this in the winter. You could. The thing is, our bodies are aligned with nature. Right? We evolved in nature. So there's a circadian rhythm. There's a natural flow and order of things that is happening out there and in here. And so we have to look at our objective. And our objective is to acquire what has accumulated and invite it to come into our digestive tract so that we can release it. The thing is, it's going to be less effective to do it in the middle of the winter because our body is trying to keep everything in.
Okay. So then say, you're doing this cleanse, you get clean in the spring, you're having an amazing summer. Is that something where the Ayurveda is more strategic in preparing you for the coming winter as well? Just eating healthy, doing different meditations or exercises, or what do you recommend on that to prevent as much of a decline in, like, say, this coming winter?
Yeah, beautiful question. So that's really where Ayurveda starts to shine, because that answer is gonna depend. The thing is, so, taking SAD, for example. SAD is really just a list of symptoms. If you have seasonal affectiveness disorder, what that means is you're not feeling your best during the winter, right? There's not that much sun, it's cloudy out, you're feeling lethargic, you're feeling heavy, you're feeling slow. The truth is, that happens for different reasons. And so, in Ayurveda, like when we start working together, your recommendations are going to be different than they are for somebody else, even if you both experience SAD. So in Ayurveda, there's never like you have arthritis, do this.
One size fits all type thing.
Exactly. I mean, 10 people come to us with arthritis, you get 10 different protocols.
Okay.
Because everybody's different, and people develop diseases for different reasons. So we have to go to that root cause, figure out what's happening within that person, and then go from there.
That's awesome.
That being said, the general one perspective we can share is that when you do this cleanse in the spring, it will very much affect next winter.
Okay.
Because as you go through this whole year, this whole natural circadian flow all year, everything will be different because of what you did in the spring. It's kind of like planting a seed.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to plant this seed in the spring, and now it's going to grow, it's going to flourish in a different way than, say, if you planted like a less quality seed.
Okay.
A seed with less vitality.
Or like the soil's not as good, or the conditions aren't as...
Exactly.
Okay, so that being said, are you going to give myself and everyone else that goes through this cleanse say a map, a roadmap, how to keep this successful? You know, if you're only doing this once a year, and per se, I don't see you again until next year at the same time to do this cleanse, you know, because we get busy with lives, just like we said. Are you going to give us a roadmap on how to maximize after this cleanse, stay healthy to where it's just making our years better?
Yes. So in a perfect world, I see you more than once a year.
Yes.
And the answer is yes. Yes. So we'll start with the initial consultation. Well, you'll learn what's happening in your body right now, according to Ayurveda. You'll learn what is encouraging your imbalances and what you can do to bring them back into balance, to bring yourself back into optimal health. And so you'll be able to carry that with you moving throughout the year.
So it's just as much education as it is, you know, a cleanse, and then there's also this education that's helping us be successful going forward.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, you're recommending a cleanse once a year, but like you just said, you would hope to see us more often than just once a year. So what does that picture look like on when you meet people other times of the year? What do you recommend as the remaining 10, 11 months of the year that's aligned with Ayurveda?
Yeah, great question. So the way that we like to do it is to have consultations on a somewhat regular basis. So our main structure is what's called the complete care package, and that is 3 consultations over the course of 6 months. And you know, that can bleed over 7 months, 8 months, depending. But essentially, you know, you're seeing your practitioner every other month-ish.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because things are changing.
Yeah.
You know, the healing process is a process. And so there are varying stages of disease. And so just like diseases progress in certain stages, healing, you know, it comes back in stages too. And so not only depending on the stage of the disease or the severity of the imbalances that we're dealing with, also it has to do with what season we're in. You know, it has to do with other factors, even factors in your life. Maybe April is an extremely busy time for you, whereas September is not, right? So the Ayurvedic recommendations that you'll receive in April are going to be very different from September, say, if that's like your downtime.
Okay. Awesome. All right, so we know that you have a cleanse that you recommend that's very helpful to us. Without going too far in depth, what are some other things that you're able to recommend or help, you know, the average person with on, say, those different 4 or 5 meetings that you have with a client throughout the year?
Great question. So Ayurveda is all-encompassing. However, when we're looking at it practically, when we're looking at, hey, I'm an American, I'm alive, it's 2023, right? I've got my allopathic doctor, and now I'm talking to you, you know, you're telling me about Ayurveda, you know, what are we shining a light on over here? There's a few things, there's several things. So one is digestion. Digestion is a word that gets very little attention in our current health system. You know, most people, if I ask them, how's your digestion? They'll say, what do you mean? You know, or like,
yeah,
it's fine, right? Because it's not broken.
correct.
So in Ayurveda, digestion is the cornerstone of good health. And spoiler alert, that is correct. Because Our digestion is what transforms. You know, you don't have an apple peel sitting in your arm. You know, there's no banana. If I cut open your arm, there's no banana there. So everything that you're eating, everything that we eat and take in, our body breaks that down all the way to its tiniest molecule and then reforms it. It's a complete reformation process, you know, into our living tissues. So our digestion is everything. Our ability to digest, absorb, and assimilate food is our ability to stay healthy. It's our ability to sleep well. It's our ability to stay energized. It's our ability to maintain healthy circulation. It's our ability to maintain healthy cycles, healthy feminine cycles, healthy blood cycles, healthy liver cycles, kidney cycles. It all hinges upon our digestion.
Okay. Now, I know last time that we talked, we spoke about this cleanse and what it entails and taking some natural medicines, I think you stated, to help that. So do you also have things that you're going to recommend for us throughout a whole year to stay where we have that healthy digestive, the healthy body and so forth?
100%. Yeah, so there is an entire pharmacopoeia of Ayurveda. There are hundreds, literally thousands of herbs which we use. Sometimes we use single herbs, sometimes we use what are called herbal formulations, which are a combination of herbs. And these are ancient. These come from the classical texts that are thousands of years old. And so those are natural. Those are so beneficial, one, because they're going through our digestive system. It's not the chemical change. It's the natural change. Our body is absorbing it as almost as if it were a superfood. It's not a food, but you can kind of think of it that way. It's like absorbing a very subtle superfood that it could use to maybe just, you know, oh, this will help me make a little more hydrochloric acid, something like that.
Okay.
And yes, so those change.
All right.
And so earlier when I was talking about like the different stages of disease and like the different stages of healing, that's a huge part of it, is that we change. We change the medicines that we're using over time.
Awesome. And you know, you mentioned that a lot of Americans, we see things, if it's broke, don't fix it, right?
Yeah.
So for a person just walking down the street thinking, you know what, I'm healthy and I'm fine, you know, where they're not feeling bad or sad or groggy, they're just, you know what, I'm feeling like I normally feel. Is this something that you would say once they do it is you're going to realize you can feel better, more energetic, more mentally focused? So even for a healthy person like myself, you're like, dude, you feel good now. Like, is Ayurveda something that's just like, man, I'm feeling great now that I've done this cleanse?
100%. Yes. I mean, that's the thing about health is that there's nobody out there who's like, nah, I don't want more health. There's nobody out there who doesn't want more energy. It's like peace or contentment. You know, it's we want more of it. In addition to that, you know, if you have the blessing of good health, then amazing. You know, be grateful and go out there and live your life 100%. Do your thing. And at the same time, recognize that that's a matter of time. You know, we have to look around. You know, most of us, if we're feeling that way, if we're feeling like I'm totally good, I feel amazing and healthy, odds are you're young. And so we have to look around and hey guys, so unfortunately our camera stopped recording before my question and answer session with Curtis was done. He asked a couple of really great questions towards the end, which I want to share with you guys. So one question he asked me was about the cost. You know, he said, cost is an issue, you know, how much does it cost? Or he said, at least cost is a factor. And I think the thing that's important here is to understand that to answer that question of what is the cost, we have to understand what is the value. Right? Because let's say I'm selling you something, you ask me what the cost is. I say $10,000. You say, well, that's too expensive, I don't want to buy it. Well, what if what I'm giving you is a Lamborghini? Would you pay $10,000 for a Lamborghini? Yeah, then it's a steal. Whereas if I'm giving you a plastic bag, $10,000 is probably too much. And so the question is, what's the value? And when it comes to our health, it's a good opportunity to look inward and ask ourselves, what is the value of my health? How much would I pay someone to have more energy when I wake up in the morning? How much would I pay someone to have more emotional stability? To find myself joyful more often, peaceful and content more frequently? How many dollars would I pay for that? How much would I pay to experience good digestion? To no longer experience indigestion? How much would I pay for these things? And so the answer is up to you. The cost of this cleanse is $325. I think it's an absolute steal. I shared with Curtis early on in my personal journey of healing, I listened to a guy named Leo. He had a YouTube channel called actualized.org, and I really loved it. And one of the things he said was that I should be spending 10% of my income on myself. That I should be investing 10% of my money into my own self, into my own development. And that really impacted me, because I thought, wow, 10%. Right now, I'm not spending any. And so that changed me. I ended up paying for yoga. I ended up paying for a psychologist. I went to psychotherapy for years. I ended up investing in myself in a lot of different ways. And I'm happy to say that it's worth the investment. So I encourage you to invest in yourself as well. The other question he asked was dietary. He asked me whether or not we were going to be restricting our diet in certain ways throughout this cleanse. And the answer is we will be making modifications to our diet during this cleanse. What we want to do is make our life easier for our digestive system. So we're going to avoid, heavy, fried, fatty foods. We're going to avoid heavy, meat-heavy foods with regularity. We're going to cut back, and we're still going to eat healthy. We're going to eat well. We're going to eat delicious food. But we're going to tap into rice, lentils, dals, wheat, beans, perhaps, oatmeal, fruits, vegetables, stuff like that. That way we keep ourselves nourished, and it's easier on our digestive system. And so those are the two main questions that I wanted to share with you. That was my friend Curtis. He's an excellent guy who I met pretty recently, actually. He's got a company, and his mission is to elevate the mental health of our youth, of our entire population. So I look forward to getting to know him better, interacting with him, and telling you more about what he does and his brand as time goes on. So, signing off.